Okay, if you would please silence your cell phones, at this time. Councilman, Jones, would you do it in the invocation and then followed up by Councilman Burrow for the pledge of allegiance?
Shall we stand? Everyone, if you would turn the Bible to Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Let us bow our heads and pray. Our Heavenly Father, our provider, our protector, he who super rules heaven and the earth, we are here. We reverence you now at this time, at this council, and this city congregate. We pray, oh God, for your direction. Give us your love, your wisdom, and your knowledge, that what we do tonight will be pleasing in your sight. It's in your Son's name, Jesus, we pray and we thank you. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Let's start off with amendments to the agenda. Does any member of the council or administration have an amendment?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add under as item 11E1, an issue regarding the use of golf carts in the city. And I'd like to add another item under my section 11E for the clerk and for the code enforcement zoning to explore requiring property owners to record special use permits, variances, and similar matters granted by this council in the land records for Jackson County to provide a continuing record of actions by this council as it affects individual parcels in the city.
Well, I do have I want to put on, should I put it in the amendment?
You good? Go ahead.
Safety condition at an intersection of Ingles Avenue and Chico Road.
All right. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, there's one item on the claims docket. I need to ask that we create an item 10B that a particular vendor on their coastal development be taken out of the general claims docket and added as a separate item so that I can excuse myself from the meeting.
What number is that?
That would be 10B. Coastal development.
Anybody else?
If council does not have anything else, I would like to remove item 7H, resolution authorizing advertisement for RFPs for annual maintenance service for HVAC systems. We will bring, the RFP is not to a point where we're ready to present to you. Myself, Ms. Turner, and Mr. Church have met on it a few times, so we anticipate bringing that to you either 24th or more likely than not at the first October meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I did this one. I need to add also on my, the Marco Festival.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next is community recognition on Mayor Youth Council. How many of y'all are here this year? Stand up if you would and let everybody know your name and what school.
I'm Nick Seacook, and I'm a senior at Resurrection High School.
Thank you again for coming. Always good to see you. And business spotlight tonight is Casa Romero Mexican Restaurant. We have a video on that. Somewhere.
In honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, we are highlighting Casa Romero, a locally family-owned Mexican restaurant on Oakville Highway in Pascagoula. At Casa Romero, everyone is treated like family. Customers can expect an authentic Mexican-style dining experience from the moment you walk in the door and see the authentic pottery and dishes, all the way to the traditional cuisine offered on their menu. Every dish they serve at Casa Romero is made from scratch and are from the recipes of owner and head chef Rosie Romero and her ancestors. A very popular item on the menu is her handmade, always fresh guacamole served with homemade warm tortilla chips. And don't forget the famous homemade hot sauces. Stop by Casa Romero for lunch or dinner and embrace the rich Hispanic food scene we have growing right here in Pascagoula. While you're there, thank the Romeros for sharing their cuisine and starting their family business here.
Okay, thank you for that video. Good job, Caroline. And also for the Romero family for investing in the city. And we already have, it's been open about 6 months now, and they're already talking a lot about it. So I invite everybody to go out and check it out, because if you're expecting the old chips and queso on the table, that's not what you're going to get. This is a real Mexican, authentic Mexican restaurant. And so please go out, try them out, and invest in your city. Thank you so much. All right. Is there anyone here to address the council that is not on the agenda? Please sign there at the podium. And if that is, we don't have anybody, then let's go to Mr. Scruggs. You're next.
Good evening. We have a number of items that we discussed at the planning board meeting last Wednesday. First item, I guess, is a resolution to accept the planning board minutes from September 11th.
Make a motion that we accept the planning board minutes of September 11th.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
The next item would be the resolution for a residential tax abatement for Mr. William Bingle for 1115 Barnworth. This is in line with the other abatements that have been approved by this council. Mr. Bingle actually applied for this back in June, and for some reason, it did not get included with the batch that was approved back in July. So, it's no fault of his, it just, we put forth about 4 or 5, and this one was just, for some reason, not included, at my fault. Anyway, it's here tonight, for your approval, and I would hope you would, do the same thing for him that you did for the other applicants.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Is the owner here?
I don't think so, like I said, he's been here before.
Okay.
This was one that I just, I put forward because I had not, placed it on the agenda when I was supposed to.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the residential tax abatement for William D. Bingle Jr. at 1115 Barnesworth Avenue.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to vote no on this for the same reason that I've said on a couple of other occasions. I'm not opposed to the abatement, but I believe the amount, first of all, I hadn't heard an amount. I'm assuming the amount was the recommended 75% for 5 years. I don't know if that's consistent with what's been done in the past. If that's correct, then I am opposed to the amount, not the abatement itself, but just to the amount.
Okay, anybody else? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
The first item on the agenda of the planning board considered was item 6C, which is the rezoning for property owned by Joey Talley. Before I get into this, this is a public hearing, but Mr. Talley has informed me this morning that he is going to be out of town and was unable to attend this meeting. I do know some individuals that live to the back of the property are here in attendance. So it might, and I spoke with her before the meeting, and it may be more appropriate to table this item, table the hearing until the first meeting in October, so that Mr. Talley can be here to answer any questions you may have or the neighbors may have on this matter.
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that if there are people here in opposition to this, that we at least give them the opportunity to be heard. They may not be able to be here when this matter is rescheduled, unless they want to defer their comments until, you know, this is brought back. But I hate for them not to be able to show when it is brought up for consideration.
Raise your hand if you're here for that. Would you like to speak now or wait until Mr. Talley's here where everybody can speak?
We'll make ourselves available, and we'll make sure.
Okay.
We made time the last time, we'll make time this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll table that and bring it up.
Well, you're going to table it to reset it to the first meeting.
First meeting in October. All right.
Need a motion?
Please.
Yeah.
I move that we table item 6C and reset it for the first meeting in October.
That's right.
All right. Do we have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, the next item is 6D, which is a application by Mark Talley on behalf of Salvation Army for 3217 Nathan L. Avenue. The image to the right shows the layout of the property, and it is a property that fronts Nathan Hill with single-family residential. Behind it is an area that is zoned community commercial, and then north of the tracks and north of that is Denny Avenue, and which is zoned RC. This is what we refer to as being a split zone. It's where you have two separate classifications for the property, for what's in this property. The property to the west of this site is actually all zone community commercial. You've got a Bell South Station, and then you have, for AT&T, and then you've got, it's what appears to be somewhat of a layout yard that the former council approved a couple of years, or several years ago. So you've got commercial activity all along the area to the west, and then the Salvation Army, which is primarily zoned, located in the SFR 6 area, is really not consistent with SFR 6 zones. They have some plans to do some additions, some renovations, tear down new construction, and this will not be permitted in the SFR 6. So they need to have their use of the property, their historical use of the property, to come in line with the zoning ordinance. And the best way to do that is to extend the boundaries of the CC zone to include this property. You know, it's we don't like to use mistaken zoning because that's really not an appropriate method of changing the zoning designation. But there has been some change in the area, like I said, specifically to the west. Also, in keeping with the conference plan, the conference plan also outlines that district boundaries should follow property lines, and it really pushes that we don't have properties that are split zones. It makes it very cumbersome for property owners to try to develop property, you know, with conflicting uses or conflicting zoning districts. So the planning board recommended that the property be rezoned to community commercial so that the entire site would be have a single zoning designation. Also, maybe pointed out in this image, basically the CC as it is right now is the area that is behind the building, which is semi-wooded. So you would to build in the CC zone, that would push back further off Nathan Hale, and also would have to, cut down the trees, which actually shield it, act as a buffer from the railroad tracks. So it makes a lot more sense to just rezone the property and to allow it to be developed accordingly. As stated, the planning board recommended to approve the rezoning, based on split zoning, changing character, and public need stipulated, for the, good that Salvation Army does, and for less cumbersome zoning, districts.
Couple of questions, Donovan. You made a comment just a second ago about you don't like to use split parcels as a reason to declare that there was an error in the zoning originally, but, if the goal is to have all the parcel, have an entire parcel be in one zone, how is it not an error? I understand the need not to split the parcels, but I guess what I'm trying to understand is to me, it seems like it is an error. Not saying it's your fault or anybody's fault, but when the plan was adopted, if a zone is split, that almost is clear example of a mistake in the original zoning and it needs to be corrected one way or the other. Is that?
Right, well, okay. Yes and no. I don't think that the split zoning, is really not, is not good. However, courts have typically said that a mistake in zoning is actually when the recorder, makes an error between what is told her to do and then what is actually done. It's almost like an actual error in the way it's described. This is, somebody decided that, 200-foot line arbitrarily drawn, from the tracks, between the tracks and Nathan Hale was a good idea. So, a mistaken judgment or a mistaken, former council decision is not considered a mistake in zoning. It's bad judgment, but it's not a mistake. It's incorrect opinion, maybe.
I understand that, and I accept that explanation. The other thing is, and I hate to show my ignorance when it comes to the Salvation Army, because they do wonderful work, but almost philosophically, isn't this more though of a residential issue if they have those who are homeless or those who have particular temporary needs, and it's being used as a residence to change it from some form of residential district now to a community commercial? Can you explain a little bit why we wouldn't just make the entire parcel a special a family or a residential district and give a special use permit for whatever activities they want to perform there, as opposed to making it community commercial?
To go back, the first zoning district that would be appropriate for boarding house or some kind of communal living would be a MR3, a mixed-use residential. To drop that on the entire parcel there could be considered a spot zone. It would look inconsistent with surrounding properties that we singled out on the trailer. The CC district does allow for the kind of uses that are outlined by the Salvation Army. So it is consistent. So by simply expanding the district, you are you're making a logical map. You're not making a spot zone that it has been that is discouraged and oftentimes considered illegal.
I wasn't proposing a multifamily. I was saying, which is the closer to what the existing use is, the family residential or the community commercial, plus the proposed use.
Right, and that's just it. The first use that would allow this would be the MR3 zone. Then you would go to the NCCC and RC. So because you could go to an NC type district, which is a less restricted commercial designation, but once again, you would have this one parcel that's kind of singled out with a different designation than the surrounding properties.
If we change the zoning though, do we have to then, in essence, grant them a special use permit
No.
in order to continue the use currently has?
Actually, the use it has right now is more institutional and, would be not permitted in the SFR 6.
Okay.
And some of their expansions would not be permitted in the SFR 6. So the more appropriate designation would be to a commercial use if it's going to go into that location. Otherwise, you know, it cannot exist in the SFR 6, SFR 8, or SFR 10.
Okay, I'm with you now.
And, you know, I know that you have special uses that are allowed, but the only special uses are allowed are those that are specifically permitted or addressed with S in the zoning chart. So if it does not say that, then you cannot just issue a special use permit. I mean, years ago, I think Mr. Mitchell would grant use variances, and we've got a number of those across town that are typically deemed, not really the best way to handle it, because as we spoke earlier with the recording stuff, nobody can find it if it's tucked away in a record book or filed in a planning department. It's better to have it in a place that's readily accessible to zoning matter.
And I'm not trying to be a hindrance, I don't want 5 or 10 years down the line, someone to complain that who's not here tonight, to complain to the Salvation Army, your property is zoned for a use which is not, or is zoned for uses which you're not conducting, and the uses which you do have on the property are, you know, not allowed by, commercial community. I guess that's, how do I protect the Salvation Army? How do we protect the Salvation Army in its current use?
Rezone property, take the planning board recommendation. The CC district, you know, gets them to where they want to go.
Even with the residential use they've got?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, in fact, the use you're speaking of, similar to boarding house, is only allowed in a community, in a commercial district. It is not allowed in any of the residential districts.
If you said that, I didn't hear it, I apologize. Okay.
Anybody else? Is there anybody here to speak for or against this property?
The applicant, Mr. Talley, is here, not this one who approved that, but Mr. Talley is here and can answer the questions if you have any, but,
Anybody have any questions? Okay. Need a motion?
I move that we approve the rezoning of parcel of land located on the north side of Nathan Hill Avenue and east of Eaton Street to community commercial.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
the next item on the agenda is 190 DuPont Avenue by Mr. Jason Voorhees. Mr. Charlie Green is the one who actually filed the application for authority. The requested action is a special use for a campground or recreational vehicle park and boat drive storage for the site. I would assume that most of you have heard a little bit about this application over the past few weeks. The property actually was historically zoned industrial. After the hurricane and after the city and county began to acquire some property in the area, it was rezoned to neighborhood commercial. And then in 2015, it was rezoned to waterfront mixed use. The whole idea is to more or less change this whole area toward a more downtown friendly, more of a mixed use type location. So in the waterfront mixed use district, the requested uses, which is the campground RV storage and the boat drive storage, are allowed by special use permits. And that's what they've come forward and asked for. The Just what we did on this property was we met with the property owner at least, now it's been about 3 times to determine, if the use is appropriate for this location. And then what can we do to make sure everything that is being proposed is going through with. PRA actually had PRA is very vested in this area, and they had some concerns based on some other property owners in the area, voicing their concerns. So we all met with Mr. Boris and had some back and forth. And basically, PRA came forward with a conditional recommendation to, or setting approval for the site. The, immediately what I think came to mind in many people was the historical recreational vehicle parks that we have in town, that my department's been working pretty diligently on for the past few years to try to clean up, make some progress. And what we did not want to do is approve a new RV park that may be non-compliant or lead to permanent occupancy of these parks, in downtown Pascagoula. So clearly, from everything we heard and everything Mr. Boris proposed, is the apples and oranges. The parks that we've had our concerns about is not the kind of park he plans to operate. Presently, the property is a layout yard for his dredging and piling activity. It's not exactly the best use for downtown Pascagoula itself, but it is a business that has been there for quite a number of years, and he does want to remove some of the equipment on that site to a storage facility or storage location up in Van Cleve. I believe some of his business will remain at the water on the riverfront along the west side of the property. The zoning ordinance itself has a long list of conditions that are associated with this special use. One is it's got to be on an arterial or collector street. It has roadway requirements. It's got buffering requirements. There are numerous items which we have to deal with on an administrative level once this is approved. And then some of the images that Mr. Boris provided, are here, more or less showing some of the buildings, and I think wants to operate a food truck to serve some of the guests. But one of the things that really caught our attention was it's not your traditional RV park. When conversations with him is he refers to Wilderness Lodge down in Disney World, where they've got these unique structures and have certain requirements on length of stay that really makes it sound as though this is going to be more of an upscale type development. Some of the images that he showed me as to what he plans to build, are on the screen in your packet, and certainly these are more along the lines of tiny houses than just strictly an RV park. And then, we took the letter, PRA submitted a letter, we took our conversations, we took, our own knowledge and concerns about the property, and more or less outlined the following recommendation, which, and in some of these, based on conversations with Mr. Boris, he actually wants to be more stringent than what we have said. For instance, we recommended that stay limited to 30 days. He indicated, 14 days was kind of max he wanted to work with, because he really doesn't want to see people beginning to own a site or, taking up residency. He wants to make sure this maintains a temporary type use where folks are in and out, and not there for a long period of time. I do think, and I added this because I think it's pretty important, that longer stays may be approved for fall and winter months to accommodate snowbirds, or the specified routes, according by the plan director. I mean, if we have somebody who wants to, come down from Michigan or somewhere where it actually gets, cooler than it does here, and our town for, more than 14 days or more than 30 days, I think we should be able to accommodate them. What we don't want to see is, folks have been there for 5 months and then reapply and are back for another 5 months, where they have residency of 6 months or 6 years. That's not the intent, and that's not what my family wants to see. With all the pretty pictures, we wanted to make sure that construction of the cabins must be consistent with the images and examples provided by the owner, design and architectural quality. We will make sure that, what he showed us is what he is going to build. And we've already had some early conversations with his contractor, and son-in-law, and decide to talk about what we want to do on that site. There is a buffer requirement along the pond. This is an area where some of the dry storage may be placed, and we want to make sure that is not visible from the street. The dry storage, let me jump in on that as well, because I'm not even sure this requires a special use, but it is in here just to make sure everybody is covered. The dry storage is not for individuals who are not camping there to store a boat. It's basically an accessory unit for folks who are, who may have a boat or may have, maybe they're in a cabin and they have their RV and they want to place their RV or boat in this covered carport or storage area while they're there. It is not for, residents or other individuals to, store a boat while they're, just as their primary means of storage. It's only accessory to the tenants of the park. And then, we didn't want to get in and try to define these policies right now, but we did want to, we are saying that policy covenants are required to be approved and filed with the planning department to prohibit and restrict the size and or age of RVs, the use of clothesline, roaming pets, and other potential nuisance activities. This was one of the items that the PRA had concerns about, and we wanted to make sure that, once again, we wanted to put it in writing, basically, what Mr. Moore said he was gonna do. We wanted to make sure that, we had it recordable somewhere and enforceable. And then, the dry storage units shall be constructed or buffered in a manner that does not negatively impact the site or adjacent properties or streets, and construction of this phase must be underway within 12 months, or an extension may be necessary as specified in Article 2 of the UDA. And that means that basically got to come back and ask for an extension or reapply. So, and if that happens, if he does not build it, then of course, maybe we'll have some idea of what he's doing based on plans and what's already out there. As stated, we had concerns at the front end of this development. We had two meetings with the PRA, a lot of emails and concern. They voted to approve this, or recommend approval of this with those conditions. And then at the meeting we had with the planning board, passed unanimously, and we had no one there to speak in opposition to it. We did have some residents from the adjacent properties over there, but nobody spoke in opposition. That's in a nutshell, or a big nutshell, and Mr. Voorhees and Mr. Green are here to answer any questions you may have, and I'll answer any questions you have as well.
I have a question. So if the project starts and the things that are being built are not like the things inside here, because this is a special use permit, we can revoke the permit and shut it down?
Yes. Primarily, a site plan has to be submitted that with construction details and drawings of the units that are going out there. So he can't even start building until he shows representation that he is going to build something that is consistent with the images and what we are approving. So, he's not just going to go out there and start building a treehouse in his backyard like somebody may do without a permit. I mean, it's got to go through my department, it's got to meet code, it's got to be consistent with everything, and then we'll approve it. And then we'll make sure he builds what's on the plans.
John, the covenants, would they belong to the property and not the owner of the business? So if he ups and sells in 4 or 5 years, the same covenants would be enforced
Yes.
for the new owner?
Yes. What we're doing here is we're approving, we're saying that policies have to be adopted and handed to me and approved by my department. They will go in a permanent file, maybe recorded with the land records, so that everybody knows what's being looked at in the future. Somebody can't go in and buy this park and take down the cottages and decide to just be a good old-fashioned RV park with 5 months of occupancy. I mean, that's not the intent here of Mr. Tippin, and that's not the way we intend to operate.
Yeah, I have no doubt that Mr. Voorhees, Mr. Green will feel what they have in their mind. It's just, you know, as Mr. Burrows mentioned earlier, sometimes people change, owners change, and things get lost, and, you know, I don't think anybody wants that down there.
There's been a lot of individuals saying that, you know, we're gonna trust the other to do this right, and the other does it right, and it's all on me. So, I'm gonna be watching it, to make sure I don't have any more dark zoning than necessary.
Any other questions?
Such a hard time.
There's, something that I'm trying to find that I just read. It says, he plans to limit stays not more than 30 days, and I know you've talked about this, but it says 30 days at a stall. So if I want to move on day 30 from this stall to this stall, my 30 days starts over.
Yes, it does. Like I said, we're saying 30 days, which is, the zoning code, allows like 5 months, or FEMA allows 6 months, and our zoning code allows 5 months. We're doing a more stringent requirement of 30 days. And what that does, it does require that you actually move it, which means that the vehicle has to be properly maintained, air has to be placed in tires can't be removed from it. You can't really set it up with decks and porches or anything else. It is a transportable vehicle or operational mobile manufactured RV.
So that goes to my next question. What type of RV specifically will be allowed to park here? Because you're exactly right. The first thing in my mind went straight to a couple of streets that we've discussed in the past. So I'm thinking flat tires, broken windows. And it did. I'm just gonna be very honest. And I don't want that. I mean, of course, the RVs are gonna look
We don't
nicer.
either.
The RVs are gonna look nicer than Greg's, but,
At the prices that he's gonna be charging per night, you won't get that. Secondly, a whole object in moving is to keep people from putting up like a temporary lean-to, a dog pen, bringing up stuff. If they gotta move it, then it's, you know, it's like, and so that's the reason. Some of these things are $150, $200, $250 a night just to park an RV, and that's the market,
so I looked at,
in the range of the market that we're going for.
I looked at some of the ones that I've been to, like in Destin and Orange Beach, so is that what we're talking about?
Yes, ma'am. Like Disney World.
I've never been to that one, so I don't have a frame of reference on
They're getting
that.
too expensive for folks like me.
Charlie, Jason, is there a problem or any issue if we impose an annual maximum of 60 days for a user to be at this, to occupy any stall at this particular RV?
Actually, they asked us to extend for like the snowbirds and things, because those guys come down, when I was renting my condo down at, we had a snowbird come in December, stayed to April every year. Y'all asked us to consider that, which we had not looked at.
Well, frankly, I don't care whether it's 60 days or 90 days, but I think I'm gonna recommend that we put in an annual maximum that any person could occupy any stall. So we avoid the issue that she's mentioned about.
Annual, that means throughout the year they can't keep coming back.
Sure,
For 90 days. I mean,
sure, they can come back in
You're
January.
talking about all at one time.
Right.
I'm talking about in calendar year 2020, a guest, customer, tenant could come in January and then come for the second half of February through first half of March, and then come again sometime later on in the year. They'd be limited though to 90 days for the entire calendar 2020 year.
I don't think that makes sense.
It calls for 5 months now, doesn't it?
My thing is.
Well, wait a minute, they were talking about something less. I mean,
No.
I'm trying to extend it out.
What we're talking about basically is.
Because when you come up here, so we have it on our plate.
Yeah, they're,
Here reflected.
they're just going to be, at all state parks, we've been all over the world in parks. And the maximum time to stay on one site is 2 weeks. Then you have to move to another site within that park every 2 weeks. All right, and the main thing I'm looking for is, I'm moving the fishing camp from the front into the back to make it easier for boaters to get back there and not be in the way. This is just something to support the business of the fish camp, because people said they had campers, they had RVs that they want to bring in. But our intention was, generally in the winter months, there is no fishing camp business whatsoever. But the group we met with asked, would we accommodate snowbirds? Because their point is to bring snowbirds that come in and stay here as opposed to going to Orange Beach and stay here. And I said, well, we'll consider it. But the main thing is, even a snowbird would have to move from campsite to campsite, because all down it, even big high-class RV units down there in Miami and everywhere like that, people come from Canada down there and they stay 5 months. But when they stay that 5 months, I mean, it looks like they have moved in. Now, granted, the restrictions are, just like we're gonna have, is the age limit and up to a Class A motorhome, Class A, Class C camper trailer. But it's gonna have to be, based on a picture ID of the vehicle, whatever RV it is, that comes there. So, I mean, we're not gonna let these, because I mean, when we go camping, I don't wanna pull inside people that's got duct tape windows and broke windows and tarpaulins pulled over their campers or their trailers. And I've done that all through Santa Cruz, all through Santa Monica, everywhere in California, and it ain't fun to pull up by those kind of people. Well, we're not gonna have those kind of people, but what I'm saying is, if you try to limit somebody and say, well, throughout the year, all you can stay here is 60 days, well, you may have a fisherman that likes to come down all during the summer and all during the fall to fish, and I'm not gonna tell him he can only stay there 60 days throughout the year, but when he's on site, he can only stay there a maximum of 2 weeks and then move. But they're the ones in that group that we met with that asked, would we accommodate a snowbird? Well, I really didn't even think about snowbirds myself, because once our business is just through the summer and the fall, and then we're usually shut down through December till May. But if snowbirds come here and it's on a condition base, and I mean, it's good legitimate people that ride golf carts, goes throughout the city, goes to different functions, goes to restaurants, I mean, that's okay by me. But we're not gonna have construction workers or people coming in here, none whatsoever is gonna be allowed to come in and set up camp and work at Eagles, or wherever, or work a shutdown somewhere. It's not gonna be like that. It's just gonna be strictly the fishing camp type business, people that we're trying to attract, or just stay vacationers. We got tons of friends that are RVs that they go down in Point and stay, and they just live right there in Hurley.
Well, Jason, what I'm trying to avoid, and I'm not trying to get in your way or trying to stop you from this, because I fully believe and have confidence you're gonna do what you're gonna say. But we've had issues with what I'll call semi-permanent RVs, and I don't want somebody to game the system, some tenant of yours that may game the system and say, I'm here for 30 days, now I'm gonna go to Gulf Shores for a week, and now I'm gonna come back for another 30 days and keep going back and forth. That's certainly within your control to say, no, I'm not gonna have you do that. But if a successor to you or a future owner might not be as community-minded as you are, and I'm trying to come up with something that's fair for everybody, that accommodates snowbirds or whatever, that says, like the National Park Service does, we have a certain maximum number of days that you can be on site. Now, what that number is, I'll defer to you or Charlie or Donovan, but I don't want to get back in a situation like we have on the trailer park in my ward, where we have semi-permanent RVs that, get up and leave and then come back on periodically. That's what I'm trying to
I
avoid.
mean, these people are gonna either come here to fish or they're gonna come here to be snowbirds. We're not allowing people to come here, working shutouts or what have you. But I just don't think, I would like, there may not be anybody that ever comes here and stays over a month, the entire year. But I just don't feel like it's gonna be right to limit somebody and say you only stay here 60 days out of the entire year.
Well,
Is what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, but, we've got people that like to abuse the system, we see it every day. And that's what I'm concerned about. Your intentions are great and wonderful, and I love it, I'm glad you're gonna do something with that property. But, again, we have some people that don't abuse it, or that do abuse it, unless you set some sort of guidelines here, and to say that it's gonna be limited for 30 days, and yet they could wind up being there for 9 or 10 months merely because they move once a week or move for a week. Again, I'm not talking about you, talking about how do we create a solution to
Well,
this.
you're gonna have, the covenant's gonna be in place is the fact of the type of RV that they ever come there in the first place. The other is they will have to move. The other will be a price because there's gonna be no discount for staying a month versus staying a day. So they're gonna have to pay that nightly fee as it is. If on a case-by-case basis, something became problematic like that, then we'd make them leave. But I just don't foresee anybody trying to come here and stay at what we're gonna be able to do like that.
The statute
And abuse
says
it.
5 months, so that's 150 days, 150 days out of a year.
One of the other things that the PRA mentioned was approving this in phases, and I understand your proposal has 3 phases, is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a particular problem if we give you permission for phase 1 tonight, see how that goes, and then if you come back in 6 to 12 months, whenever you're approaching completion, to say, look, this is what I want to do with phase 2 or phase 3? Does that cause you a
Well,
particular
I
problem?
have no problem because the main thing is I'm gonna develop the phase 1 and it's either gotta make money or it don't. Cause if it don't make money, I'm not gonna keep doing it. So if I don't, if it don't make it, of course, I'm not gonna keep throwing good money after bad. But, I feel like the way we're gonna do it, go about it, that it'll work and I believe it'll be an asset, but it's gotta make it, or else I'm not gonna pursue it myself.
Well, you put a lot of money in it already. I went down there today and looked at it. Didn't you dredge all back there too?
Yeah.
Who
Yes,
paid for
I-
that?
I
See, does anybody else got it?
I have one more question, I think it's in the packet, but I can't, my eyes on it, so I'm just gonna ask, because Donna will know off the top of his head. Will it be compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program?
Yes.
So I want to say, too, that it looks a heck of a lot better than it's been looking. And then my other question is, I know you're gonna move some of that up to your place up at Van Cleve. The rest of that stuff is gonna be over there by the bait shop, right?
Well, what it is gonna be, where the cell tower is, all right, those people I inherited that when I bought the property. So, anyway, they have been after me to respond to them. I've never spoken to them since I purchased the property. Well, their lease is up in 2022. Well, I could do nothing about it. When I bought it from Lewis's, that was it. But now, they're coming in with all these different offers, but I just feel like that right there is really detrimental to the whole area, because, who is gonna ever buy any of that or develop it with a cell tower in the center? So, I'm not gonna renew their lease. I ain't told them that,
Right.
but I ain't told them anything.
You
So,
just did.
because, I want it gone.
We'll keep you secret. We'll keep you secret.
Okay, but anyway, they just, so from just beyond that, where we're gonna develop, that right in there is where we're kind of drawing the line. Well, I mean, my primary income is a construction company. I've got to have waterfront property. And, I understand that, I mean, there's tons of that stuff down there that can be stored. We got acreage in Van Cleve, we can store it up there. And I've moved some of it away from there and just stacked it, but I'm gonna, if approved, well then, I'm gonna go ahead and move everything that's non-essential to Van Cleve. The rest of it, I've got to have my cranes, got to have my boilers, got to have that facility to operate. And I told the group that we met with before, I'm not opposed to ever moving totally away from there if y'all would make the right deal with me with Boat City Marina. I tried to do that already, but they turned around and told me that I could not spend the night there, couldn't park a barge there, couldn't change oil there, couldn't sandblast the paint, couldn't unload and load material. So I said, then what do I want it for? Because I went through the whole lease process. But when I got that lease that big and read through it, I couldn't do anything. So
That was at least from the Secretary of State's office?
yes, but, and I dealt with Eddie Williams and all that through there. But he wanted me to deal with them because he said the city really didn't benefit from it and they didn't even want to waste a postage stamp. So basically, I dealt straight with the Secretary of State.
Well, look, you do this for me, when this is all over with, come sit down with us and talk about Oak City again.
Yeah,
Okay.
because, and then, then we can develop all the way down to the waterfront if that's the way this thing leads, But I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if this
No, I get that.
be perfect or not, but maybe this will attract or do something with somebody that does know.
Well, I just appreciate you investing in something like that, that's gonna bring people in here. And one, I'm an RVer, so with Don and I travel all over. And I know what kind of park you're talking about. They're high end, and so I've been down to Venice and different places fishing. These same deal, Delacroix comes to mind. And they have 8 of those kind of things that you're talking about. But I just want to say thank you for investing and moving out and being flexible. And we're certainly going to be flexible on Boat City USA too. So please get with us. Anybody else got any questions?
I do have a question for Donovan after some of the comments I've heard. I want a clarification on the subject property. I mean, some of the improvements he's made is not actually included in this, right? The one that was in the dark paint. Can you go back to the slide when it shows the subject property? Well, that was fine. So the subject property is to the south around the water, or is it the front street?
Let me show you this one. We need to do it side by side, it would be easier to see, but I didn't lay out that one. All right, on the image that shows the overall site plan, the site that goes on the right side, goes all the way down to the little pier, that is that's in the red. And then the tower that Mr. Gordy spoke of, I believe is about at the far left dot on the south side of the page.
So the site improvements, this is where the site improvements are with the new pier.
Where Frederick Street comes down is where it'll stop, where that line is.
Yeah, on this one, you see the line that goes through that property on the subject site, the one with the non-imagery. That line is about where everything to the right of that line is going to be with the site. Improvements are. Everything to the left, everything to the left is going to kind of maintain as he laid down yard, I believe, for some of the industrial activities.
Can I ask that once you have the plans, the site plans and that kind of thing, could you bring those back to us and let us at least see them?
Yeah, I can definitely share them with you.
That was a long pause.
Well,
I think we should probably get that before or after they've been approved.
I'm assuming, I'm jumping out on an assumption there, but just because, well, this is the thing that bothers me. This council's been very aggressive trying to improve the aesthetics of the city. And here we go, trying to approve things without seeing plans, and I hate that. I wish that when things came to us, there was a drawing that came with it.
Well, there's something in the application. I mean,
Well-
there are some drawings, there are some
Yeah, that's not
pictures.
exactly what I'm talking about.
I understand, but I mean, there is, it's more than we get for some other ones, and I'm not,
That's my
I'm,
point.
you know. But any of that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, if we could, I'd like to approve the, planning, board's recommendation for the special use permit of a campground and recreational vehicle park at 109 DuPont Avenue with two changes. First, where the planning board recommends stays at the park are limited to 30 days. I'll change that to stays at the park are limited to 30 consecutive days up to the maximum allowed under our city ordinances, which I understand is 5 months. Okay? 30 days has to be defined, has to be 30 consecutive days. So that's to me, a very minor change in the planning board's recommendation. The second is that we approve the construction of phase 1 and require that any additional construction of phases 2 or 3, whether as they're currently conceived or maybe modified in the future, come back before the council.
Okay, so 30 consecutive days, and we'll approve phase 1. If y'all make any changes to anything in phase 2 and 3, you have to bring it back to the council.
Well, no, I mean, we're approving phase 1, even if they don't make a change to phase 2 and 3, they still have to come back.
Now, the 30 consecutive days means that 30 consecutive days and you are out of the park.
Well,
And you moved to a different
Oh,
side.
then that's all.
let's look at the recommendation from the planning board. It says stays at the park are limited to 30 days. I think it's in
In one
everyone's.
stall.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to define here. What does it mean to be 30 days? Is it 30 consecutive days? Is it 30 days in a stall? What is it? And so I'm trying to clarify this by saying 30 consecutive days. If we want to add the words in the stall, that's fine with me.
Currently doesn't say that.
But I want to add at least consecutive days.
I think at 30 consecutive days at a particular site, at a site would be correct.
Site or stall.
Yeah, site.
You can't move, that would be additional clarification, I think is necessary. I think both of you are correct.
Okay. So approving phase 1, 30 consecutive days up to the maximum allowed by the current ordinance, which would be 5 months. Okay. So it was approved with those changes, the recommendation of the planning board.
The second? I'll second. All right, do we have anybody else for discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Keep busy on one.
Thank you.
Ms. Charlie, good to see you.
Good to see
Jason,
all y'all again.
Jason, don't forget, get together on that other.
Okay.
About that. Did you know that? Yeah, it goes back to that. Yeah. It tends to always go back to that direction. Okay, we're gonna go on to the consent agenda now. Move one, so, is there any, we're gonna go on to the consent agenda now. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Claims docket's next.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna make a motion, we approve the claims docket, excluding the item previously as amended, regarding coastal development.
Second.
All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
approve the coastal development claims document.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes. Okay. Mayor, council items?
Sorry. I give two for Mr. Jones, as I appreciate, which would be 11C1, believe, which is safety issues at Ingalls and Chico, and then 11C2. Whoever does, I believe you said Zonda, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to discuss that, Rick.
Thank you. During the, I believe it was on last month, there was an accident on the corner of, freeway intersection, Chico Street and Ingalls Avenue going east and west, Chico going north and south. There was an automobile, I don't know exactly who hit who, the chief in the back, I said, I thought he may know that. Are you aware of that accident?
I'm not too sure what happened.
Matt, do you know?
No, sir, I don't.
Well, anyway, there was an accident that happened there where an automobile flipped over. I was behind. I did see the automobile when it lost control and went over. And the automobile, I don't know if the gentleman going south hit the gentleman going west, but either way, the vehicle flipped in the air. And right in front of him is there's a service station. There's a service station there on the south side of Ingalls Avenue. Then there's one also on the east side of Chico. So there's two stations there. That truck would have fell over at least a good 10, maybe 5 feet more. It hit one of those gas pumps. It could have been a disaster. So we need to look at putting some kind of reflectors or something there to control that traffic, because in the morning that traffic is very heavy.
Reverend, I would go even further. I've said this before, since it's in my ward. The intersection of Ingalls and Chico, to me, is probably the busiest intersection in the city, which does not have any traffic controls. Not all the time, but many times during the day, especially during the late afternoon. I've seen very many near misses. You can get lined up on Chico, turning left or right onto Ingalls Avenue for 6, maybe even 7 vehicles. It is an extremely dangerous intersection at certain times. I, one time, was a co-owner of a gas station, the Chevron, that's at that intersection. We asked both the police department and the city administration to consider putting a stoplight there. And we were turned down flatly, told basically, and I'm paraphrasing of course, that the traffic wasn't enough there. Well, at 11, 12 o'clock during the day, it isn't, but come by there at about 3:30 to 5 o'clock. When school's out and parents are going a lot of different places and coming home from work, it can get quite dangerous. I don't know what needs to be done. I'm not a traffic expert, but something needs to happen at that intersection. There were 2 incidents, again, when I was a co-owner of that station, 2 incidents where vehicles struck the sign that's there with the gas prices. Ended up costing us about $15,000 to get it replaced. So I'm just saying there's something can be done there. I don't know if it's increased police presence. I don't know if it's a traffic light, but something needs to be done to try to help that situation.
I want to say that I've talked about that before. When are they going to repaint that area? Stripe it from where it was tore up, where the stop bar is.
I thought we caught everything. If we're still missing a stop bar, I can go back and check that.
Well, one of the other things that we talked about the other day was, just like you said, the reflective bar, the reflective, you screw on the stop signs and the yield signs. Those things are like $20 on Amazon. So, one, I think you got a lot of signage that is faded that needs replacing. 2, for $20, it could have made all the difference in the world on that particular intersection. That's a dangerous intersection.
We can certainly look at the stop bar and any other striping. There are requirements for the signs. If we were to test and replace them all, I think we have a budget issue. And then further, this issue with that intersection has been an issue for many, many years and has actually been evaluated a few times and would warrant a stoplight if we were to pursue it to that level. Once you fully complete the evaluation and complete the warrant analysis, if it's warranted, you're then compelled to complete the improvements. And I think the question has always been, if we take that step, do we have the funding to make it happen? Because we will have to acquire property.
Do we know how much it costs?
I think the last estimate I heard was somewhere in that $200,000 to $300,000 range.
I don't see why that's.
The preliminary, I've done the count where we did the 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I was the one on this corner doing the count, and the preliminary analysis is that the traffic would warrant a traffic signal if that's what we want to pursue and invest in.
Well, I know it's a budget issue, but I can't imagine as much money as we brought into this city in the last 12 months. That couldn't have been
So,
part of it.
I mean, if that's something you'd like to pursue,
Why don't
that's,
you let us reevaluate that, look, get me with her.
there's been a lot of work done in
Why
that.
couldn't you make it where you just couldn't turn left right there? I mean, that would help quite a bit. I mean, you could turn in front of the dance studio and then you've got the red light and marking thing.
So
Well,
there's an approach you can make there, and then the same approach was made at Hospital in 90 with the median, and you see the traffic, the tire tracks, they're all over the top of it, and people go the wrong way down the one way just because they're not gonna go around. It helps to dissuade a lot of people,
That
but
comes
not
back to
everybody.
your traffic unit. We need to,
But if that's something you wanna pursue, I
Double your
guess I
traffic
wanna
use.
let you know that there's been a lot of effort already put in that direction. It would not take a lot more to go ahead and do a full traffic study, get a warrant, and then move forward with property acquisition and a.
well, I'm thinking if 22nd Street on Ingles has a red light,
As a matter of fact, when we were looking at it at the time, it tended to indicate that that one could likely come out, but that Chico needed it.
The only thing about coming down Chico going south, if you won't be able to take a left turn, as you were talking about, that wouldn't be good in the afternoon for the school buses coming from Como. You're gonna have about 6, 7 buses coming down, and if they can't turn left, I
And if-
mean, I either gotta go 22nd and go to Beach Boulevard, Washington, and turn around.
And the thing is, that if they go around to a different
Right.
block to somewhere where there's a light, they
Yeah.
can be protected. If we can get a light there, then they can be protected there. If we take the left turn out, then that puts a lot more traffic somewhere else that can't handle it. So you kind of have to balance all those things.
all right, so you'll get together on that and make
That's
it
something you
a
wanna
study.
pursue,
What's the second one?
Second one happened is the Zonta Festival. I had to ask this question tonight, I guess I probably wouldn't have been able to go back home. The Zonta Festival, Pascagoula Street is blocked off, usually, in the past, it's been blocked off. And it has been said that the people that's at the festival, some would come into the library, lounge around and look at displays, what have you. But it's been said that Pascagoula Street is not going to be blocked off this year for the festival. The question is, why is it not gonna be blocked off?
I don't.
I do not know the answer to that. I've not heard that. That's the first to me. But I do know that your very lovely wife serves on the library commission now. But we can follow up on that for you and find out if that's the issue and then see how we
Can you
can.
do it before I go home?
I'm good at times, I don't know if I'm that good.
He doesn't
I got
want
you.
Pascagoula Street blocked. So he wants it to be blocked so people
Back
are
to
going
the
to
next
block it.
one.
When Travis recommended.
Hey, Matt,
You know the reason why Pascagoula Street is not gonna be locked down?
Yes, sir, on the recommendation of the police and others who over the years have had to work Pascagoula Street, the decision was made to move Zonta west towards Anchor Square, and this year Magnolia and streets to the west will be closed. So Pascagoula Street being a main thoroughfare and traffic being stopped for the Zonta Festival, it was just the recommendation that we not do that anymore.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
But Chief Deputy Chapman will make sure that the library is sufficiently covered, right? For-
Oh, yes, sir, we'll have.
There.
If you have any arrows pointing,
We can get some arrows. We can get some arrows.
There you go. Okay,
Thank you, man.
all right, anybody, got anything else?
Now you got two more on this.
Mr. Mayor, I raised two issues. First is regarding the golf carts. There was an article recently in the Mississippi Press about the golf carts and the impact both in Pascagoula and Ocean Springs. Funny to read that because the very next morning I see a young lady who could not have been older than 14 years old driving a golf cart along Gallery Street. Did not recognize her, didn't know where she was headed. That same weekend, this past weekend, I had two different constituents call me to complain about near misses they have had with underage driving. And I know Deputy Chief Campbell's here. I simply ask that the police department and for the benefit also the city manager, I don't know what can be done to step up enforcement here. I'm concerned that we're going to have a really bad accident at some point with these golf carts. I'm starting to actually see some of them pop out now on Market Street and Ingalls where they shouldn't be, again, because of the heavy traffic. And I think that, you know, that falls upon the police in terms of enforcement. Maybe hand out a ticket or two and make sure that you people get the word that they need to be, keep those golf carts where they should be on the lower traffic, slower streets. So, I mean, just wanted to raise that issue tonight.
Piggyback on that, because I've had someone, actually, Matt Ward, near me, who has called because there are kids on ATVs.
Well,
And they're
yeah.
speeding all around and, you know, but these are 12, 11, 12, 13.
Or younger. I've called the PD, you can go check calls for service there on Love Street, probably, I don't know, maybe 10 times, 15 times, for that, driving four-wheelers. They come up in that yard there, Blue Donuts. But also they do the Polaris Razors, the engines, the Rangers. I mean, they're up and down. They're at the point. I see them at the point getting quite often. I don't know why.
Well, look, not to steal anyone's thunder here, I know that one of the priorities that you all wanted during, that came up in the budget session was an increased presence of patrol. That is something that Mr. Corder and I have reached out to Chief Johnson about, and are going to revisit with him very soon. But I don't think anyone in here is in disagreement that you have to enforce the rules of the road, and that needs to be a primary objective. And if it hasn't been, it needs to be.
I do agree with that, but I want to increase enforcement.
Well, that's part of.
I mean, visual deterrence, police officers' best friend. However, at some point, these guys have got to be held accountable because it's out of control. I've been getting calls too.
I've got a citizen asked me, why don't we require the children on those golf carts to wear helmets?
That's because they're not supposed to be operating.
When you're not supposed to be operating.
I'm talking about the one sitting on the back seat that's facing.
It's just, it's the rules of the roads. I mean, it's.
Because he said he was behind one that looked like it was about 5 or 6 years old, and they were just jumping around.
Supposed to have seatbelts.
They were just no.
Yeah.
Right. Again, that's an enforcement.
Okay.
The last item, Mr. Mayor, I had was an issue that I had talked about with the city manager, and I did not have a chance to talk to Donovan about it. And I think it became apparent tonight on the request for the RV park on DuPont Avenue. I'd like to see the city adopt a mechanism, and I think it would be fairly simple, whereby zoning changes, in particular special use permits and variances are recorded with the Chancery Clerk in the Land Records Department so that we have a permanent record of changes that we make, permissions, variances that we offer to the citizens. I think that not only protects the particular property owner, but I think it protects the city too. All too often, we've had issues whereby someone claims they have a variance, or someone may have a non-conforming use, and they say, well, it goes back to this time, or I had a prior owner tell me that they got permission from the city council in 1975, and we had absolutely no way to prove that person wrong. And likewise, we face a problem in trying to enforce that, if in fact that person is accurate. And I think with a very simple mechanism, a very simple form that would attach a resolution passed by this council, recorded with the Chancery Clerk for a fee of $12 to be paid by the applicant, we could set up a mechanism whereby the city and its citizens have a permanent record of what is being done with particular properties that affect them going forward.
Mr. Burr, if I could, Donovan and I actually talked about that right before the meeting, our conversation, I believe, was yesterday. And we are going to try to figure out the simplest way to do it, and then start including it in those types of items that come before you, where they're referenced in the, not only referenced in the resolution or the order you may pass, but also in that resolution order that it will direct the city clerk to file that with the Chancery Clerk, so then you'll be, I wouldn't say doubly covered, but it'll be reflected in the minutes as well as being reflected in that. So we just gotta figure out what that actual vehicle is, but yeah, absolutely.
Steve, as a realtor and appraiser, that's an excellent idea. I'm surprised that they haven't been doing it all along, to be honest with you. Because there's so many properties that are being used for special use that have been that way for numerous years, and we just don't know. So.
Okay. All right, is anybody here to talk?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, you have Mr. Wilkerson for 4525 Market Street.
It's gonna be short, I'm freezing, dude.
Club.
We just want to remind the council that we still live next door to Pavco. We still are blocked on a dead-end street trying to get in and out. We still are dealing with so much smoke and dust. You can't be outside, and we work outside in the yard all the time. Plus, they had a dumpster, and it was running out on the ground, and whatever was in it was burning our eyes. We did make a police report on a lot of these, because when Pavco was up here, the council rules, we don't have any incidences. Well, we have been making incidences
Good.
within the EQ and the police department, and.
Not just us, the Carters,
Oh, yeah.
the burials, they're using that section of Market Street as their own personal loading and unloading dock, and we have to wait for them. It takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to unload an 18-wheeler. The loading dock they're in may be on city right-of-way, and it may be city property, according to the engineering that we see on maps. And they've been using it for years. Trucks for 40 foot, now they're 55. Tractors used to be 30, now they're 50. So here's a tractor sitting here across the yellow line. You're coming down past Gula Street. You have to go northbound in a southbound lane and into Mr. Carter's yard sometime to get around. And this is 5 to 10 trucks, takes an hour, 10 hours a week or more. He's got a crew out there working.
But it's the poison they put out.
And the
You're trying to
smoke
breathe.
is ridiculous.
It burns your eyes.
What is MDEQ saying about it?
Well, they resolved it by saying there was a bad operator on the boiler.
David told him, oh, I got rid of that operator, he wasn't any good. Now, this has been multiple times.
So I know another incident was reported last week, maybe 2. Because other neighbors are calling me, well, what's the number to MDEQ? Because I can't go outside. It's choking me even in the house. And it depends on which way the wind's blowing. It's pretty bad.
His dumpster he pulled out was an open top dumpster. He dumps it once every 2 weeks. I was mowing the burial's yard. I came back, Bobby Burial's little grocery store, because he can't no more. All of a sudden, I see dumpster comes out. He puts it in the middle of the street. When he unloads, it up 10 gallons at least some type of black liquid out on the street. Couldn't even breathe right. We called the fire department, we called the police department. Fire department saying, don't touch it, don't get near it. We just wash it off on Padco's property. Nobody wanted to touch it. That was an open top dumpster, not intended for garbage, not intended for plastic. And here's the deal. He doesn't have any garbage containers. He has, says 40 employees, so they throw all their garbage from lunch every day in this dumpster. May. Sits there 2 weeks. Rains in. Then he takes it out because he can't change it on his facility. Uses public right of way. But he does take a 55-foot trailer in there every Thursday or Friday into the plant to load it for somebody to pick up and take out on Sunday afternoon. If he can get one in, he should be able to get every one of them in there. But he says he doesn't have space.
Okay, completion.
If I, but Mr., we met back, I looked at my notes because I heard your comment on May the 12th, and we agreed that we're gonna look at that again in the future. Now that, I also talked to Donovan about this before, okay? Now that the budget session is over, we're gonna get into that. But last week or a couple weeks ago, whenever it may have been in the dumpster, leaking stuff into the right of way, myself and other people went out there and looked at it. It did not appear to be in the right of way with us. And I'm not trying to look over y'all, but Chief Krebs is back there, Tyler.
Yes.
And I asked you about that one time, and y'all were aware of it, correct?
Yes, we were.
Y'all understand? Okay. If you could, to me, y'all made the proper authorities aware of what it was.
We did, and he's gotten back with Waste Management for them to start putting liners in their containers now. He also said he's gonna do an MSDA sheet on the material that was in it. And I don't know what's in the material itself, but as far as how much it was, I know the rain, it was making a leak out into, more or less going into his loading dock area.
Bill from the yellow line, the whole length of the city, well, we have photos of it.
Okay, but from what I know, it was just the materials that was in rainwater washing off into the,
He told us it was flour.
I say all that. to say this.
I'm not too
We
sure
were
what
aware
it
of the
was.
problem.
Yeah.
We had a crime
Yeah.
issue. We were gonna work towards the best resolution that we
Okay,
can.
well, we've been trying
I
to
know.
get along with him. It's so many years now that he's getting worse instead of trying to cooperate.
Well, it's on our radar